Well, now to the growing relationship between Boko Haram and the Islamic State extremist groups. In a new development, the Islamic State, which controls parts of Syria and Iraq, has accepted a pledge of allegiance from Boko Haram. In an audio statement released Thursday, an Islamic State spokesman welcomed what he called the expansion of the country's self-declared Islamic Caliphate to West Africa. Boko Haram leader Abu Bakr Shekau last week pledged in a video that his group will hear and obey Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Both groups follow their own strict interpretation of the Quran, but it's unclear what their public allegiance will bring. Well, to discuss further the growing allegiance between Islamic State and Boko Haram, we are joined by Kwaku Nuamah. Kwaku Nuamah is a senior fellow at the Center for Conflict Resolution. He was also an adjunct professor at American University. Professor Nuamah, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me, Vincent.
So this came somehow, for some perhaps caught them as a little surprise, but now it looks confirmed. The ISIS is saying, yes, we accept your allegiance to us. What do you make of this?
Well, it says a number of things. I think both ISIS and Boko Haram are desperate. ISIS has lost ground. They just lost Tikrit. And Boko Haram is losing ground. Nigerian government has brought in mercenaries from South Africa and from former Soviet Union countries. We've seen Chad.
Well, the Nigerian government is saying those are not mercenaries.
Yes.
The president of Nigeria and
but
officials are saying, well,
helping.
they're people who have been brought in to help train.
Okay.
And they may be armed, but they're training Nigerian soldiers and perhaps others to help
But the
fight
effect
Boko
is
Haram.
that they are beginning to push back Boko Haram. So Boko Haram is under pressure. ISIS is also under some pressure. There were reports of internal dissension in ISIS. So this works. And I've seen some reports dismissing that in mere propaganda. I think that going, further down the road, this could actually mean something.
So first, you're saying something really critical here, that both groups are actually losing. That means Nigeria is doing a good job, of course, with the help of
Niger and Chad also pushing back.
ISIS is being hit hard,
Very
of
hard.
course, by the Peshmerga with the support of the airstrikes from the U.S. coalition.
Iran in there.
Yeah,
also.
so what will this achieve if the two groups start kind of working together?
Well, a number of things. First, legitimacy. Both groups get some type of legitimacy from this. ISIS has been trying to build a global brand. A terrorist group that holds territory will be short-lived. If you have a territory, you have an address. It means that some people can hit you. Eventually, they're going to morph into what Al-Qaeda became, a global franchise. So this is important for them, for their image as a global jihadist group that's pushing against the West. This allows them to say, look at us, other people are signing up. They've seen other groups in Egypt and Libya also swear allegiance. So this is growing. For Boko Haram, it allows them to tap into a global franchise. And that has implications for funding, but also a reciprocal system of recruitment. So this it can help them. It's not going to be the reason why they win, but it's good for now.
President Goodluck Jonathan said he believes that Boko Haram has been trained in some Middle Eastern countries. So do you get the sense that there has been that kind of a movement where you actually will have some fighters from Nigeria going all the way to perhaps Syria or
There's
Iraq?
going to be some of that. And if you saw the acceptance statement that ISIS released, they were telling Muslims who can join them to go fight in Africa. So this has implications. There are people that are going to recruit, that they're going to flock to Boko Haram maybe because they can't get to the Middle East to join this fight. It has
so it may
negative
draw people
effects
from
too.
other African countries too.
It can, but
now,
it can affect them in a negative manner too.
One other question. You did actually mention Al-Qaeda. Where is Al-Qaeda right now? What's happening to Al-Qaeda?
I think Al-Qaeda has just been upstaged as a global flag bearer for jihadis by Boko Haram, if it truly becomes, and they have funding. But I think that the long-term survival of ISIS, first of all, it's not going to be a state. That's not how you become a state. And it's not a group like, a group like Al-Shabaab that is fighting a civil war. It's carving up territory from different countries. Those countries are going to push back eventually.
Now,
but they can exist as an idea, as a symbol of the Western, the fight against the West.
It looked like Al-Qaeda seemed to have a little more sympathy perhaps because their approach to whatever their agenda was looked a little more, different than what we're seeing. The viciousness of IS, Islamic State. Do you get the sense that perhaps because of how barbaric it is, how it displays all this barbarity, perhaps they may not win as much support across even the Arab world?
Well, it depends on who they are pitching this stuff to. There are people who like how ISIS does these things. The recruitment, we've seen Boko Haram imitating some of them. Some of the attacks, filming the beheadings and all that stuff. Al-Qaeda is a much more traditional terrorist organization. ISIS is different. It's very different.
But those acts, are they not revolting?
They are revolting to you and me, but to people who want to see Westerners punished and people who want to see...
But they're doing this to fellow Muslims.
They are. That's very important. That's a very important distinction to make, because if you look at the acceptance statement, they were referring to Boko Haram as a Sunni Muslim group in Africa. So there are a lot of people who... Remember, ISIS is not just fighting against Christians and Jews. They're also fighting against Shia Muslims.
That's right.
So this is going to be an interesting tactic to see if there are Muslims in Africa who are not Sunni, how does this appeal to them? But as in terms of the strategy that they're using, it's meant to be a warning to people who will fight them. But I guess it appeals to some people. They have a very sophisticated media strategy that gets a lot of attention. The things that they do is meant to shock, and it gets a lot of coverage in the media. Right? So it seems to be working.
We've been shocked, though, but we hope this are the
last
days.
But this was coming, though. If you were watching Boko Haram, they were gradually indicating that they wanted to be affiliated with ISIS. They've been dropping hints.
You see a lot of duplication in their actions and video recordings. Well, Professor Nuamah, thank you very much for joining us today. Well, Professor Nuamah, Kwaku Nuamah, is a senior fellow at the Center for Conflict Resolution and adjunct professor at American University.